go.
Hello, welcome to PDQ Live. Today we're going to talk about Intune.
Oh, yeah.
And
we have a special guest on the show, yes?
we do. And to talk about Intune, we decided to bring an expert. This is Jake Costello.
Expert.
Yeah. He's one of our sysadmins.
We found him on Craigslist.
Yeah. We just rented him out.
That's how everybody finds their IT
Now,
people. Yeah.
I know I'm breaking protocol here.
Yes.
But can we start with a question?
Why not?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to start with a question, and hopefully this will lead you guys in. Okay, this is from a newbie. He says, what is Intune? Is it free? If we don't use Office 365, is it fair to assume we don't have access to it? Sincerely, Alexander N.
So, yeah, if you're not using Office 365, odds are you don't have it. I think the lowest license tier is E3 or Microsoft 365 business.
M365, yeah.
Something. I don't know. The licensing is a little bit too confusing, but it's pretty much the MDM for Windows. And it does a lot of stuff really well, does a lot of stuff not so well, and it's kind of what we're going to go over.
Well, technically, they say that it can manage everything now, including iOS devices.
I saw they put
all
Linux
kinds
in there
of
recently.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not it actually does that, I'm gonna wait and see.
Yeah, I did use Intune for some Macs at a previous job, and I thought it was about like just kind of, it felt more like a formality, checking a box that the computers manage more so than, but maybe it's improved, but that's what simple MDM is for. So
Yeah. So
It's not Jordan. Whoops. Okay.
I've changed.
I was meaning to change the color in the background there.
Oh, okay. All right, go for it.
okay, so
Cool.
simplest answer: Intune, MDM.
yep, it does a little jack of all trades. I
Jack
feel
of all
like
trades,
you
yeah.
know, master of some.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the group policy portion of Intune. It's not called group policy within Intunes. They're called config profiles. And then we're actually going to hand it off to Autopilot
A little bit.
and then we're going to toss it to Connect to do our software push-outs.
Yep.
That's the game plan. So if you don't have something like a smart deploy that is a lot beefier and can do a lot more, Intune and Autopilot are a great alternative. You're paying for it anyway if you use 365. So
They're pushing everybody in that direction. So
yes.
Yep.
So that's kind of the gist of today. So
Yep.
all right,
Yeah,
let's
do
get
it.
started. Okay, so first thing, we're going to hop into 365. So we want to jump to Intune. So we're going to put some resources for you. So I would highly recommend starting with some training. So I took this training from Udemy this week, and actually it was super cheap. And the very first thing you need to do is you need to come to this Intune Admin Center, and you want to come configure this MDM user scope and the MAM user scope. By default, this is turned off. So start here for absolutely sure. MDM, you got to turn this on, all, and all. If you don't turn these on, nothing's going to work.
No, and there's a good amount of like behind the scenes work too. So assuming you're coming from like a hybrid on-prem environment, you will need to set up a few group policies.
Yeah.
To make sure that the user credential enrolls the computer, a bunch of stuff. So this is just like getting started in here. But
Yeah, we're just going to show you a few things, but definitely do some research. Don't just start out haphazardly because you'll be mad.
Or do, and then figure it as you go.
No, don't do that. You'll be mad, I promise. So then next, we're going to talk about just group policy. So it does give the ability to import on-prem group policies. So this group policy analytics, you can take your old group policies right here if you wanted to, and you basically download them, and then it allows you to upload them here, and it will tell you if it's compatible. So Jake took this laptop lock policy, and all we did was import it.
Yep.
And then it says MDM support 100%. And then we didn't migrate it because we want to show you live how to do that.
Yeah, so you would just back up the group policy, upload the HTML file into import, and then you can check that box and go to migrate. It'll show you the settings that like came over from group policy into Intune. Usually they're pretty accurate, but we were talking about this yesterday, and it seems like the way that we would both do it is you see what it recommends, and then you set that as a brand new policy just because it's better to start fresh. But so yeah, we'll select all. We'll hit next. Here's all these settings that are migrated to the cloud. Policy info, we'll give it a name. We'll call it test. That's easy enough. No description because we all know what everything does. Scope tags are relevant for this, and then all devices.
You wouldn't want to select all devices when you're first starting
Testing,
out.
yeah.
Do
But we've
tests on a
got
small
one
group.
device. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Always test with some, but assuming you want all your laptops to lock, that's probably the best way to do it. Yeah. So that is that simple. So you will see in a lot of the group policy stuff that you upload that it does not, there's just no compatible alternative. So that's kind of frustrating. You've got to kind of jerry rig some stuff together sometimes, but where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah. So we did talk about this, and I probably wouldn't do this. When I migrated 7 domains from on-prem to 365, we hired a outside company to help us, and his recommendation was to start fresh as much as you possibly can in 365. So I personally wouldn't do this. I would make them all brand new, but
I'd probably upload them just to see what is compatible and then kind of knock the easy stuff out. But yeah, most people have like a web of group policies that probably aren't doing anything or they're outdated. So definitely better to start fresh.
Yeah.
And avoid that mess down the line.
Yeah. We just kind of want to show that you could do it. But anyway, so that's how you migrate them. But then we want to talk about how you actually make them. So these right here, the configuration profiles. I'm just going to take off my watch so Kelly doesn't yell at me because I keep hitting it on the desk. So configuration profiles are right here. And they're really easy to make, actually. It's a lot easier than making a group profile because you can kind of see everything that you do. So I'm just going to talk through them just quickly. You can make user-based profiles. You can make computer-based profiles. So pretty similar to group policy. So you see I named them thusly, computer, user-based. But I want to actually dive into this one first. So these are all OneDrive, and they differ slightly. They're very similar, but they differ slightly. So again, just like group policy, a lot of similarities. We're going to come down here, and I don't want to look at that one. I want to look at configuration. So let's just hit edit, and then we can kind of drill down and look at what it's going to do. So these are the settings that it's going to tell you. And actually, we're going to include a guide to this particular one, because this one, I think, was the best one for OneDrive.
Is one of the first things I did at my previous job when we got Intune going was, people spill something on their computer. Everything's OneDrive, doesn't matter. Give them a new one. Yeah.
This one just syncs everything from OneDrive
For your
and
desktop documents and one other directory.
Pictures.
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 Kind of irrelevant, but
And then they don't even know it. So this just applies it. And then just like group policy, it sets the target. You select your target. So very easy to set. So that's one of them. And then
I feel like the best part about Intune and config profiles is that there's a lot less, I feel like you're way less likely to break a lot of stuff. Group policy, I don't know, setting with scope and user permissions. And this is just a group for users, group for devices.
Yeah, the visibility is easier too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But whether, the functionality of it, different story. But
Yeah.
A question about this policy you just created. If someone isn't using Intune but still has OneDrive in their subscription, can they still make use of this? Right. I know we're showing it in Intune, but still could be pretty cool for people on-prem.
Yeah, I believe so. I assume there's a corresponding group policy. Ultimately, it's probably all just registry keys, right? So you can.
Yep, exactly.
Even if you had to,
between the two.
Yeah, you could probably use deploy with registry keys to get this done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super big benefit though. If somebody hasn't implemented it and is already paying for it, there's probably a lot of stuff that you can take advantage of there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the OneDrive, so as I said, you can do the administrative templates, and you can also do the settings catalog. I found the settings catalog to be a lot easier to see what I wanted. The administrative templates was like a huge world. And you can just search OneDrive and it shows you what you're looking for. But I like the settings one better.
Yeah.
It was easier for me.
I like whatever seems like it gets me to my result quickest. So whatever I'm Googling, if I see something that seems straightforward, throw it on 5 computers, yours included, and we'll test it.
Of course, mine. Of course, mine. And then we're going to do BitLocker next, but I'm just going to say this quickly. Just like group policy, you can generate these from different locations. So this BitLocker one that I made right here, I made it from configuration profiles, but Jake actually likes to generate it from a different location, and it's kind of tricky because it looks exactly the same. So I'll let him talk through that.
It's like there's 3 different ways to do so many different things, but it seems like the way that made sense to me, at least, was to go into endpoint security. Granted, you won't see it with all of your other config profiles in there, but it just seems like there's a little bit more robust options in here. So under endpoint security, this works great too if you've got Defender. It all wraps into here. So that is pretty nice about Intune and like the cohesion amongst all of the Office 365 Microsoft suite. But so yeah, the BitLocker policy, pretty much the same as group policy, but I mean, a ton of options. You can set the strength, boot process, whether you need a pin to start up, all that stuff. You can set, if it rotates the key, unfortunately, it'll always store it on the device or always store it on the device.
Yeah.
Except for when you need it. And then, it's pretty straightforward, but there's just so many different places to do the same thing. And I feel like it all comes down to spending about 20 minutes reading a bunch of random stuff on Google and figuring out.
Well, and you want to be really careful with this one, right? You don't want to send this to all your devices. You want to test with BitLocker.
Yeah, I think I've got like 3 different test groups. One's called Test Jake Device, Test IT Device Group, which you're into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, awesome.
You get everything first. So, yep. But I don't know. Yeah, we haven't broken anything with this, fortunately.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just more so finding the right spot to put it. I feel like it belongs under endpoint security.
Okay.
More robust choices, and I don't have to fool around with the admin templates and settings and stuff like that.
And I think it's worth mentioning that unlike group policy, where you want to kind of nest a bunch of things into your base group policy, this is a little bit different where they work better if you keep them separate.
Yeah, I feel like that goes back to the whole try to start fresh. And like, I feel like I've definitely been guilty of making a few group policies that have one name, but then I've added a couple things on because it's similar. So I don't know, the way I see it to do it is, even if it's just a simple setting, I'll give it a very explicit name. It does that one thing, and then I can look back at like a more precise place to see what might have broke.
So especially when you're testing.
Yeah, exactly. If you've got a bunch of stuff going on, and then, you can easily have conflicts between things. So it's just easier to have individualized policies, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. But you can use the company branding if you want to do like the desktop screensaver.
Yeah.
That would be like more of a catch-all for everything.
Yeah, there's like things like, or setting the taskbar layout, stuff like that, if you want to make sure that people know where Outlook is, or something like that, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so we've done the group policy. So now let's hand it off to Autopilot.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about exactly what Autopilot is.
So Autopilot is cool in the fact that it's just zero-touch deployment. You can contact your manufacturer, and they will actually, or your supplier, they should be able to upload the hardware info directly from them to Intune. So you can even just ship the device directly to the user. They turn it on, they log into it, and it provisions itself. So it's pretty useful in that regard. It'll join it. They're pushing to Azure only, but you can also use it to hybrid join if you're not quite ready to make that jump. But you've got to set up a proxy and stuff. And in my experience, it's been kind of finicky.
Okay.
So it all depends, but it's super useful for just getting a device out the door. It lacks a lot of imaging functionality like Smart Deploy would have.
Right.
So your Autopilot, you're getting a computer, whatever's purchased with it, bloatware, all that stuff is coming with you. Unless you've set up a bunch of PowerShell scripts or something to clear that. But
I can join with my 365 account.
Yep.
I can assign it to a user.
Yep.
Once I get it in Azure, I can do a whole bunch of things like that.
Yep.
So if I have a fleet of 1,000 computers, can I use a PowerShell script to get all those computers into Autopilot?
yeah, you can. So the one good thing about making that switch is you don't have to just buy a brand new computer. You can use the Get-WindowsAutoPilotInfo PowerShell script. So that'll generate a CSV on the computer, whatever is the easiest way for you to do that, to get all that info compiled. You can upload it.
Okay.
The PowerShell script's even got a -online parameter, which I feel like I had to do some searching to find out. So
Well, let's cover that really quick, and we are going to include that script for everyone's reference and kind of how to walk us through that really quick.
sure. So
So we're going to go to Intune and then Windows.
devices, Windows enrollment.
I think the most frustrating part about being inside Azure, Entra, whatever they're going to call it this week, is finding where everything is. So I kind of bookmark everything so I don't scream at my computer to go find it.
I just click a whole bunch until I get back to until my brain resets to where I know where I'm going. But yeah. I mean, so pretty much Autopilot lives out of here. So the devices tab, this is where you'll upload any CSVs, or when you do that online parameter, it'll automatically shove it into here.
So I'm just going to hit import my
Yep.
CSV right there.
If you had a CSV, that's where it would go.
So
That's simple.
the PowerShell script is looking for device ID. I'm
Yeah, it
assuming
pulls-
that's what Autopilot wants.
hardware, hash information, just
Okay.
a bunch of stuff. It's like,
Okay.
mess of characters. But the one cool thing about this is that it locks it to your tenant. So if the computer were ever stolen or sold, it's yours. They're
Okay.
not, no one else can get into it or log in with any other account, image it without, like in this case, a PDQ login.
nice.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's nice. It keeps it to your tenant. Don't have to worry about it being stolen.
Okay, so we're just going to be 100% honest.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a little rocky time getting one in here. I was screaming a lot this week because it didn't go perfect.
Yeah.
We're just going to be 100% honest.
Yeah, I mean things. So
It was a little annoying.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, even in my experience using Autopilot, it's like if I tried to deploy more than 3 or 4 apps, I've had, it'll work for 5 computers and then 3 computers will throw some error or get stuck on one app that worked fine, or something will say it's installed, but it's not installed.
Yeah.
So I try and use it, or at previous jobs too, I try to use it as sparingly as possible. So at PDQ, try and push out just Connect, for example.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's make a Connect app and then we'll use Connect to do the heavy lifting.
Sure. Yeah. So the one thing that Microsoft, I don't know if it's explicitly stated anywhere. I don't know if I just didn't read the manual, but it seems like they want everything to be packaged in an Intune Win file.
Okay.
So if you try and mix and match apps, especially with Autopilot, it seems to stall out, break some stuff. So, you don't want that. So I think we're going to include these links somewhere, but you'll need to get the Microsoft Content Prep tool, which is called Intune Win App Util. So you can get this directly off of PowerShell. Off of GitHub. Mm-hmm. So you'll download that file. This is included in Microsoft's documentation. So we get that. And the way that I like to do these types of things is this is where I am maybe organized. So
oh my gosh, I love it. Let's see. Let's watch.
So I like to take it. I put it in its own directory. So I'll just make a new folder. We'll call that Intune. I'll drop this here. So then we've got a place to start. I'll make a new folder so in this case, we're going to package the Connect app. So the way the Intune app util works is that you need to choose a folder for what's packaged. So if you choose, the first few times I've used it, I've chosen a huge folder and then I've got like a 40 gigabyte file. It's got a bunch of crap that's not necessary. Mm-hmm. So I'll make a new folder for just the Connect app. Mm-hmm. And then I like to also make a folder for the output Intune Win file. So
I downloaded the Connect app for you. There
Perfect.
it is. Yay.
Sweet. So we'll grab that. We'll go back to our folder. And so if you had an exe or something like that, you would include, license files, INI, MST files, whatever you'd want in here. Anything that's part of it needs to go in here. So from there, it's as simple as, so we're going to go to our Intune directory, and then we're going to run that Intune app utility. So the source folder, I like to copy and paste because whenever I spell it out, I'll miss something.
Gotcha.
The setup file. And then make sure to put the extension on there. Mm-hmm. And then the output folder is going to be that Intune Win folder.
So that's why you make it beforehand.
Yep.
So I don't know if you're really being organized. You just have to.
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
You kind of have to, but I've also had it where, I've just got files everywhere. So it's easier to have everything in that. My organization is that Intune folder on the C drive.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Does it matter what you say here?
So I actually looked this up because I wasn't sure. But this is apparently is for S versions of Windows. So not many people use that. So that would help out if you've got app restrictions or app locker, that type of stuff. But we don't have that, and most people don't need that.
Okay.
So that's pretty quick. Connect specifically is a very small file, so pretty fast.
So Zorro in the comments is saying that you don't need to do this anymore, that you can just upload the MSI.
So you can upload the MSI. However, in my experience, when I've uploaded the MSI, it's for MSI specifically, it's much easier to just upload the MSI. Mm-hmm. But I've had enough issues where things with Autopilot, if I'm deploying multiple app types, it'll get hung up. And it seems like the easiest resolution, at least what I've read on Reddit and stuff, is that if everything is the same package type, then it seems to go a little bit smoother. And since EXEs can't be uploaded without wrapping into an Intune Win file, that just seems like the way to go.
Okay.
So it might be a little bit more work, but I've found that it's a little bit more reliable as a whole. So I don't know. It's a couple extra steps, but it seems like that's kind of the direction that Microsoft wants you to go. Yeah. Okay. Again, I don't know if that's an explicit thing, but if it works,
it works.
It works.
Okay, we're going back to Intune. You went to apps, Windows apps. Okay,
so
we're going to add an app.
Got this uploaded, so we'll just delete that. So we're going to add our new. So so if you were to do the MSI, you could just click line of business and throw the MSI in there and pretty much be done with it.
Okay.
But the way we're doing it is Win32, select. We'll upload that new file. got the name it something, maybe prettier, but for the purpose of the webcast, it's all good.
Okay.
Publisher, that is us. So you can have it featured as an app in the company portal. We didn't really go over that. The company portal is kind of like a self-serve.
Yeah, we don't have that live yet. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to select no because we don't really want people to have the choice of whether Connect is installed. We need that.
Yeah, don't question us.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I know best. So so we'll upload an image if we wanted to, but irrelevant. So the good thing is that at least it pulls all of the install commands and uninstall commands directly in. We're not going to allow our users to uninstall that. I've generally not had to touch this. This would probably be more useful for a bigger exe or something that might do some nefarious stuff, but we'll keep that as is. Minimum or operating system architecture, we're all 64-bit here, so that's what we're going to go with. And then I will choose 1607 just because if there is a straggler device out there, I don't want it to be excluded. So the other annoying thing is that you do have to tell Intune where to look for the app to be installed. So that's kind of been a pain for certain installers, but this is pretty straightforward for the most part. So you can choose MSI, and that'll automatically have the product code. But I've seen some software, the installer code changes when the version updates or something. So rather than have Intune push the old version when you've got the new version and be in this battle, that's not what I'd like to do. So I go with file. And then for the file, I know it installs at C, program, I could type files, PDQ, and then, so you can look for the executable, but I've been burned by it in the past with like software that when it updates, it actually updates the executable version number. So that won't work because you can't just put a wildcard as far as I'm aware. So for this, I'll just do the folder, which is PDQ Connect agent. And then we'll choose detection method, file or folder exists. So I'm just looking at that directory. I'm looking at this file is there or this folder is there, whatever's inside of it, if that's just the way it is. So I'm not going to associate those 32-bit app with 64-bit clients. Dependencies, this is a little bit more. I've never really had to use this, but it would be, not relevant for Connect, but if you've got something that needs another app installed first, this would be that.
Okay.
Supersedence, same thing for the most part, not really necessary in this case. We're just pushing out Connect. And then obviously you'd want to test first, but again, all devices is the end goal. So you can turn off toast notifications if you don't really need your users to see that something's being installed. Hey, IT, why something happened? Yeah,
no,
we don't need that.
Turn that right off.
Hide all toast notifications. And you can have it set availability or time zones, but we just want it out there. So next, great. And that's that. Now you wait Microsoft time. It could show up. It could show up on the computer in 10 minutes. It could show up in a couple hours, but it'll get there.
So like group policy, there's no GP force group policy update, nothing like that, right?
I don't know. The internet, I've read a bunch of conflicting things. I've tried the basic. You go into the devices, you click on the device, and you hit sync. You would think sync does something.
No, it does nothing.
In my experience, it only updates the check-in time and makes me feel good.
Yeah,
but
right.
It doesn't actually...
Yeah.
It doesn't actually force anything in my experience. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. But I've tried everything. I've tried using remote shell and Connect to run a scheduled task that should update it. There's no rhyme or reason for when I just reboot a whole bunch if I'm testing until something shows up. But that's how it goes.
Okay. So now we've pushed it out. We have the Connect agent on there. So now we're going to jump over to Connect now, which is in our other browser.
Gotcha. Where is that? All right,
There it is.
So obviously if that's not in here yet, it probably wouldn't be anytime soon.
We'll just pick another one.
Yeah. So the way that I see a lot of customers and myself using Connect is that I'm using whatever I can to get connected to the computer, and then I'm using Connect to manage the software from there. Just because if you've ever had to upload or update software in Intune and something like Chrome, you'd be uploading a new version every other day. And in my experience, it gets pretty finicky, and it's just a whole lot to manage. So that's why we've got Connect that does the app distribution way better. Definitely use Intune for the config profiles and such, but here we are. So if you want to go over some Connect stuff.
Kelly, how many questions do we have?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4-ish right now.
So maybe let's do some questions, and then if we have time, we can talk about these groups within Connect.
There's a lot of documentation videos on Connect. So
Jordan's made some amazing videos on how to kind of set this up. And send out your
Get
software.
the automation
so,
going.
yeah.
Yeah. So
All right.
that's how I think Intune should be used. That's how we like to use it. That's how I intend to use it going forward. I don't want to manage any apps in there myself.
Yeah.
It's a little bit much.
It's way easier in Connect.
So you want to bust out some questions?
Why not? Let's do it.
All right, let's dive in. What's the best way to enforce registry settings that there aren't configurations for? Remediations aren't reliable. Sincerely, James D.
Yeah, the remediations has been tough for me. I've used that it's also, I didn't know about it for the longest time because it's dug so deep in menus that wouldn't make any sense. You have to go to analytics or something and then from there. But honestly, registry settings, in my mind, that's a PowerShell script. But I've used Connect now to set a ton of stuff. If I can avoid using Intune for it, I know Connect's faster. This isn't probably the best answer, but I just don't necessarily trust anywhere in Connect to do it perfectly.
Intune, you mean?
Yeah, in Intune, to do it perfectly and reliably enough that I'd want to repeat it.
You would use Connect.
Yeah, I'd use Connect. I mean, we've even used Connect to push out Wi-Fi profiles because Intune was giving me a ton of problems. So I made an XML with a Wi-Fi profile and we used that to push. It's crazy. Something we shouldn't have had to do, but it works.
That's a good answer.
All right, let's move to the next question. Do you have to update ADMX and ADML files in Office 365? Mark S.
So we've been using some that functionality of auto patch, I believe it's called, within Intune. But you can upload ADMX and ADML files for things like Chrome I've used in the past. But again, it just seems like it's more work without a guarantee of it actually working. So
We're really good advocates for this.
yeah, it's I mean, I use it for the things I know that'll work, and that takes a lot of confidence to get there. But I assume you could, but we have not needed to do that. We've been using the auto patch, and that's kind of slow. It sets its own pace, so it's not really automatic, but it'll get the job done eventually.
Okay, next question. Can you create this same directory in a SharePoint repo? Eduardo.
So Zorro actually answered that in the comments too. He said that you could, but go ahead, Jake, if you have.
Go for it. I mean,
Well, I'm just answering what Zorro said, actually. So I just
gotcha.
didn't know if you had another question or another answer to it.
if that works, it works.
Zora said it worked, and then he wanted the SharePoint to link to the desktop as well, so it's
Yeah.
already there.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that one was already answered.
Nice.
All right, more questions. They just keep coming in. You guys are popular. Is there a time limit when it doesn't install the agent? Eduardo.
Does it tell you when it's failing? Because I couldn't get it to tell me.
For Intune to tell me that something's failing.
Yeah.
So I've had it say failure we even still currently have production devices that our employees use that say that Connect has not installed from Intune, but it is because I can manage it. So
That's maddening.
I don't know what the time limit is. That's been one of the most frustrating things, like the visibility and just the troubleshooting and finding logs and stuff that help is way more demanding than I feel like it should be. So that's why I set as few apps as possible.
Yeah.
I've seen things get stuck that have no business being stuck, or things that say they're installed and then they're not, which I guess could be a fault of the detection method that you have chosen for that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the time limit is, and if there is one, I haven't found it.
It lies.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Next question is from Elmo F. Can Connect trigger a deployment of apps to a newly added PC when we deploy the agent via Intune, and how? We do this on-prem, but not seeing a good way using Connect.
So you can make a Connect group with newly added devices. I think the time limit is 72 hours or 48 hours until it has some type of interaction. So you can make a new group.
Go ahead.
Oh, what were you going to say?
No, continue.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, you can make a new group in Connect that'll have all the new devices that have just been installed from Intune. And then at the moment, I just use an automation that installs once per day. You can make it a shorter time frame than that, but generally that works. So new user gets a computer 9 a.m. and then by 11 a.m. I have it install all of the new apps. Yeah.
I was just going to say, and Jordan can correct me if I'm wrong, but in talking to the developers last week, I think the time frame is a lot shorter, that the check-in on the agent is done over WebSockets, and if it has
gotcha.
connectivity, it'll be instant.
Yeah, so as soon as it shows up, and then it just comes down to what you have for your automation triggers. Yeah. And I think there's more on the roadmap for automation triggers and stuff. So
All right, next question. Does every machine have to be licensed in Microsoft 365, or is it per user license for Intune, RH?
I think it's per admin. The Intune license follows the admin.
So I think in terms of, I think it's licensed per user. So users need the E3 license. And then I remember when I made the group policy, I think you can actually maybe license either, but when I made the group policy at my previous job to get everything enrolled into Intune, like the group policy has a selection for user credential or device credential, and all the documentation I saw said go user credential. So, all I know is that all of our users have E3 plus licenses, more than that. And then I've used the user credential group policy to get those devices.
But to get the Intune admin portal, you have to have that one assigned.
I think you might even need Azure Premium P1. I don't know. The licensing for Microsoft is too confusing for me to honestly say with any confidence.
Yeah.
But that's a different story.
Remember how I said there were 4 questions?
Yeah.
There's more. Let's do it. What's the secret to get the XML file to run successfully to customize the start menu and taskbar? Sincerely, Christina, uppercase G.
I would like to know that myself. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. So at my previous job, it worked. And then I actually haven't really messed around with it too much here because I feel like it isn't as much of a priority for us. People seem pretty tech savvy here, so people know where to find stuff. But
No, so Brock did a blog about this. I thought Brock's in the chat, so he got it to work actually. Because when we were doing that webcast on Windows 10, and the group policies didn't work. It definitely involved PowerShell though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Intune there is like that setting is like a upload the XML file here, but yeah, again, I don't know why. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it doesn't, and that's just one of those things that I can't stand about Intune.
There are a lot of rage threads on the internet with no clear answer.
Yes, I remember.
We tried to something as simple, totally different topic, but we tried to set like the time zones or the Win32 time, whatever those resources, and I'm Googling it, and people are just saying, oh, it just doesn't work in general. That's it. It doesn't work. So,
yeah, Brock is saying he can't link it, though. It is on the Smart Deploy blog site, though.
Yeah.
I do think that one does work, but I could be wrong.
Andrew linked it.
Oh, he did? Okay, good.
All right. Looks like we got 3 more so far. Would some of these packages be able to install on a BYOD environment, Eduardo?
I did some research on this, actually. It was part of that class I took, and it is a little bit creepy. And again, this is what Microsoft is claiming Intune can do. Any device that you add in Intune, you can manage. So it's a little creepy. So yes, technically, yes.
Yep.
Now, I think it's a little bit creepy to add a personal device into Intune.
I've seen some people do it accidentally if you don't turn it off, like turn those settings off. So one day you come into Intune and you've got like someone's home desktop on there. It's like, no, get that out.
I don't think there's a clear line of bring your own device versus corporate yet. Not in the same way like Simple MDM, you can separate it out. But I think that they're still developing that out.
Yeah, I know that you can, like to answer that question, you can have BYOD devices. You can download the company portal, enroll in it, and then your computer's in there. And Intune will actually mark it as a personal device versus a corporate device. So just in case some snuck into our environment, I have a lot of things targeting a group I made called only corporate devices that looks for that corporate identifier.
Yeah, you can separate it out a little bit, but I don't know. I feel a little creepy about it, but
yeah.
Well, as James pointed out in chat, it's also if you have BitLocker set up, then you're going to put BitLocker on their personal device.
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I try. So yeah, we use like all devices in these examples, but in production, I've made a group called all corporate devices to make sure that nothing is in there that shouldn't be.
Well, to your question though, because remember when you said once you get it in there, it's PDQ branded. How do you get it out of there then?
That's only for Autopilot.
Okay, only for Autopilot, not for
so if the
Intune.
hardware hash stuff was uploaded, you'd have something would really have to go wrong for someone's personal device to be hardware hashed into.
So be really
Autopilot.
Careful with that part.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right, 2 more questions.
So only app. Oh, Zoro said you shouldn't enroll personal devices. App management only. Okay, good call.
It's true. And speaking of Zorro, this is a question from Zorro. Would Connect be able to access dynamic groups in Azure so we can automate deployments based on those groups?
That is not a functionality at the
Not
moment.
yet, but
Yeah.
I believe that's on the long-term roadmap. They haven't given us a date, but that is.
There's been a lot
I
of talk
think,
about
Yeah.
some, whatever integration we can get within Azure, but I feel like that's it's a lot different than AD, so the integration is limited. But I would like that as well because that would be perfect for not having to recreate groups and such.
Like for Zoro's questions, we should have like a video clip of like the Z going.
I think so.
After any time he asks a question,
Yeah.
that would be very production value.
All right, final question. Are we ready? Here
That's
we
it.
go. Can Jake replace Jordan permanently? He is way smarter and better looking than the other guy. Sincerely, Jordan.
Oh, that's suspicious. I don't know. It took Tara a lot of begging for me to get on here, so I don't know if I'm ready to replace Jordan. But
I like that he didn't even try to like use a pseudonym. He was
no,
just
I'll take that flattery.
Nice. He actually accepts food too. He likes all kinds of food.
Yeah, that's fine by me. I'll eat anything.
Yeah,
Bring
true. That's true.
And there you go. That's it for questions.
all right.
All right. Thanks for joining us today. For PDQ, I'm Tara, and this is Jake.
James, I do drink, just not whiskey. I'm not a whiskey guy.
And that's Andrew, and I think that's the other guy,
The other
Jordan.
guy, yeah.
And this
Okay.
is the Salt Queen.
All right. Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations to Christina G. Uppercase G, winner of PDQ swag. Send us your info at webcast@pdq.com. If you like what you've seen today, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave us your comments. We like those too. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you back here next time.